Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. I showed Ninja number 4 in one of my pull lists from last week, and what I said about it is, well, gee, I don't know. Is this going to be like a SJW character? Or are they going to actually do something really cool with this character? And I promised I'd tell you. And boy, Ninja number 4 is one of the grossest comics I've read all year. At first, I was going to say I almost hated it as much as Spider-Gwen 23, which I think had an openly misandrist fantasy about punching straight white males in the face. At first, I was going to try to defend this and say, well, it's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as that. And then it kept getting worse and worse. This is a misandrist comic. This is as bad as Spider-Gwen number 23. This is absolutely hideous. And the only reason I'm not going to rip this comic is because I want to save it and punish it the number one Marmaduke fan way by turning it into a better work of art later. So the premise is that the main character, Ninja K, he's interviewing all his predecessors, and this is Ninja G because he's found out that M16 is pretty much killing people who are close to their ninja agents as a way of making sure that their ninjas stay isolated from the world, that they always just keep coming back to M16 for work. And pretty much what I've learned about Ninja K is he's sort of a James Bond-esque character, but in a ninja getup. He goes on heroic spy missions, he beats up some bad guys, he sleeps with some beautiful women, and Ninja G is his black female, and I'll spoil this, statistically improbable bisexual lesbian predecessor. So I'm just going to do storybook time with Uncle Marmaduke fan, and I'll explain why I don't like this as it goes on. So the only thing I can say in defense of this is Juan Jose Rip's art is still pretty good. But well, let's go. So Ninja K is in her house and she's beating him up, because she's a cool action girl, and they're very well known for being able to beat up, the young, elitely trained male ninjas at the height of their physical abilities in a beat 'em up fight, and they're kind of at a standstill. And so Ninja G starts telling her story of how she became the greatest ninja in all of Britain. So the first big fat question I had is, what about agency? Because they talk about how M16 recruited her and she was working for M16. So I kept thinking, okay, well, if she's having objections to these sort of things, why can't people just raise their hand and say, hey, M16, I know that you think I have the IQ and the physical abilities to work for M16, but I actually don't want to work for M16. Isn't wanting to work for M16 kind of a key component of you being able to work for M16? It makes sense if they have like a tough training regimen, or if in the context of the story, the government's doing shadowy things behind the scenes. But it doesn't make sense for this character to be going along with all this and never once kind of raise her hand and object and say, I don't want to, I'm not comfortable doing this kind of work. So the first thing is after she's included in this M16 training program to train spies and agents. They learn how to kill, they learn all kinds of, educational information like psychology, and they're being trained to seduce. So just like James Bond, he'll sleep with all the female villainous characters. They're being learned how to use the art of seduction on targets as part of their spy duties. And what she says is that, she can't do this even in training sessions. So this isn't like some villain, like in a Bond movie, like a Dr. No type of character. She's in a training lesson where she's supposed to be learning how to seduce people as part of her field work. And then as he tries to reach out for her, she stabs him with a fork. So this is a teacher. This is maybe a classmate who's in a similar situation where he has to be taught how to seduce, or he's just role playing the part. And she physically assaults his hand in the context of this lesson as a way of underscoring that, like a strong female character, she don't want no man touching her without her permission, even though she's in a program where part of her job as an elite spy is to go kill people and maybe seduce her targets as part of getting the information, as part of killing the terrorists, as part of her duties. Now, this continues. So she's black and female. So what I was hoping was this could be a real character. This could be, even if she's not a heroic character I admire, if she's a villainous character, that she would be a complete character. Yeah, race can be part of who she is as a person. Her sex can be part of who she is as a person. She can experience racism. She can experience sexism. I think what this story is an illustration of is how not to do this. Everything bad about treating race and sex as, it's almost like this comic treats race and sex as one of her hangups, like alcoholism or something. It's not a natural part of the story. It's just very clearly and transparently Valiant saying, we want a strong black female lesbian kick-ass character. So that's going to be part of her story no matter what. And then all of these dumb questions rise up, which don't make much sense. Okay, so she says, because the ninja program started including women, perhaps you can imagine what it was like not only to be female, but also black in that setting. What? The boys asked you if you could do a pull-up? What? Okay, so let's look at this. So maybe the boys were supposed to be physically assaulting them in this situation, but going just on the art, these guys are kind of pointing and laughing. So they're maybe making some crass comments or something. And then we go right into this. So if these boys physically assaulted her and she's defending herself, that is not shown on camera. There's nothing to show us that she needs to physically defend herself in this situation, in a kind of a morally justifiable self-defense. All I see is maybe pointing and laughing, and then this. Let's look at what she's doing. She's kicking this guy's teeth out. She's using a palm heel strike on this guy, knocking his teeth out. She's grabbing this guy's dick and crushing his testicles. Grab him by the pussy. The only person I have seen so far sexually assault anyone is the character who I'm supposed to be thinking is a cool and amazing black female superstar ninja character. So, apparently for the crime of maybe making a crass remark and maybe pointing and laughing a bit, this guy just had his testicles crushed. And so then she gets trained by the Jounin, this sort of ancient ninja who's, learned the ancient ways of kung fu and how to slow the aging process. And he's about to touch her butt, and then she punches him in the dick, and then he knocks her across the room. And she's so feisty and she's so ready to die rather than let this perv touch her that she kind of earns his respect. Okay, that's something I could get behind. The pervy master, like Master Roshi type of character. Maybe that's a little racist. Come on, Valiant. Gee, you want to perpetuate racist Japanese stereotypes for the sake of telling your story. But anyway, yeah, I kind of like the idea of the teacher being kind of handsy, and then she resists him and then earns his respect. So this is what I thought at first could be the redeemable part of the character, is this idea that she isn't just like a woke black token minority character, but she's an actual character who earns her position. The thing I kept thinking about was Brienne of Tarth. Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones. I love that character. I read the first 3 A Song of Ice and Fire books, and then I gave up on the 4th one because it stopped following the characters I cared about. But the reason Brienne of Tarth works is that she's a freak of nature, and people in that universe think of her as a freak of nature. She's not like Samus Aran or a 21st century feminist character in a medieval setting. She's a highly unusual woman in that there are almost no women who are badass super knights in the world of Game of Thrones. And the only reason Brienne of Tarth can be one is she is freakish. She's in the top 1% of the top 1% of the most mannish, muscular, physically capable women on planet Earth. And this is actually an important part of her character, where more feminine characters will comment on how mannish she is. Or if Brienne of Tarth falls in love, she falls in love with a very strong, handsome man who she can never hope to woo. So she makes herself become a better and better knight, because even though she can never marry the man she loves, she can hope to become a knight and serve the man she loves. It's a very poetic, great character. It treats Brienne of Tarth being a woman in a man's world as something really significant and not just something to be cutesy about. Ninja G, she's just a cute girl who's the badass character, most badass ninja girl in London, because she's the most badass ninja girl in London. I already had, this is already a fantasy book. In a fantasy book, you could accept that, okay, she's a brilliant super spy girl. It's a fun fantasy book, but fun fantasy stuff and the kind of griminess of this story don't mix. It'd be like if James Bond, in the middle of, his fun little adventure with Dr. No, suddenly there was like a giant torture scene where someone's got castrated. And then we had a 10-hour lecture on violence and sexism in media, and then back to our little James Bond story. You can't make that work. And this is the problem that's assaulting this book. So the Jounin, tells her about, his adventure of learning Kung Fu Buddhist stuff. And then, oh boy, there's just so many little cringy moments. So here's this agency thing again. So she talks about how 1/4 of kids die in this program, and 1/4 wash out, 1/4 wish they could wash out, and 1/4 become the support staff for the number one. If you're the number one, you're the ninja, and then the top 25% of the class are your supporters. They back you up. So okay, she has merited the top position. She's overcome the immense physical disadvantage she would have against these, the strongest young men in all of Britain. She's beaten all of them. So she's overcome that and merited the top position. And people are whispering that she may have slept with the Jounin to get to the top, which isn't true. Okay, so what this illustrates is that no one who works their butt off and gets to the top likes it when people say, you didn't earn that, you got it because of favoritism. And the solution to that is to not have favoritism. Because if you do have favoritism, if she did get the top position because she slept with the instructor, then their criticism would have merit. If M16 had an affirmative action program where if you were a certain minority, you didn't have to punch as hard, but they would count that as a harder punch to compensate for decades or centuries of systematic oppression. You weren't the toughest fighter in the class, but you were they gave you the spot of toughest fighter in the class, then all of these guys would have an argument that would sink home. The reason this sort of works as a character is that she actually does merit the top position based on being able to kick people's butt in a fight. The point is that even when progressives try to make a diversity and representation message, this is an inherently anti-affirmative action message. She didn't get the top spot because of affirmative action. Lowering the standards for her, lowering the number of push-ups that she has to do, or asking her to only do girl push-ups instead of boy push-ups to get the top position. She merits the position of ninja based on being the best in the class. All right. So then where do we go from there? Okay. So then there's like this stuff like, oh, she only fights terrorists who are going to hurt civilians because she's so tough and independent. And here's her rival. So now we're getting back to this fantasy aspect of it. The idea of ninjas running around fighting Russian secret agents, that's a fantasy idea. Ninja spy is working for M16 or the CIA. They don't run around in ninja costumes fighting on airplanes and rocket ships. This is the fantasy aspect that should be pushed in kind of a fun escapist fantasy story. Ninja G versus the Russian agent. And this grinded my gears. So says Ninja G about Devochka, the Russian agent. That's what they called her, the girl. I thought a socialist nation whose women had fought the Nazis would be less sexist. The Nazis? Oh, you mean the Nationalist Socialist Party of Europe? Ooh. So this comic equates being a great Russian socialist country and being anti-Nazi with being unsexist, less sexist than Britain. Disgusting. 50 million starved people in Stalin's Russia. No mention of that. Socialist, commie, pinko, propaganda bilge. Of course, I was wrong. We were their best agents, and we were oddities for it, like two sides of the same coin. So what's sexist is that the Russian girl agent is called the girl. That's a mark of respect. She's not a girl, she's the girl. It's like she's the toughest girl in all of Russia, and it's sexist that Russian agents call her the girl. We nearly killed each other countless times. And then, amazingly, G starts getting interested in this in this heterosexual relationship. And there was another dig here. He was kind, clever, cultured, treated me as an equal, which was rare for those days. Hey kids, did your parents or grandparents live in the 70s? Well, they were most likely statistically sexists. People in the 70s, amazingly, and the 60s and the 50s and the 40s were able to have healthy and genuine relationships and marriages. They were able to love and respect one another. It didn't take the second wave or third wave feminist movement for people to learn how to love each other and treat each other kindly and with respect. Amazingly, lots of people were able to have healthy and good relationships before that. And because this is a Misandrist comic, I have no confidence in the writing staff of Valiant to teach kids or young girls how to treat people with respect and kindness. This is this is signaling, oh boy, wasn't it bad to be back in those sexist old times? I'm glad we live in these great progressive times where we can just have absolutely atrocious characters, like we're going to see with this character, try to teach children our progressive views. This comic is despicable, and I will not be giving it away even because of how despicable the morality of this comic is. So then she says that she shows up and then kills the Russian agent for killing her beau. But it turns out that was a lie. It was really M16. Piss on Queen and country. Yeah, screw the British Empire. Those white Anglo-Saxons. Colonialist patriarchy. Oh my gosh. So then Ninja K asks a question. Forgive me, but it sounds like you only had suspicions M16 was behind Thomas's death. No proof they lied. Perhaps Devochka was simply an exceptionally fine actress. And then suddenly there's a knife and a gun. And a lady says, just like a man, you haven't let her finish. He man-interrupted her with a reasonable question after allowing her to continue uninterrupted for an entire story. How dare he interrupt her with a valid question after... Oh! You can't have a conversation with this character without being accused of being a man-interrupter. Just like a man won't let a woman... Excuse me, oh Russian super spy girl. Did you assume his do you have passing privilege? Maybe he's a trans woman who just refuses to dress like according to patriarchally defined feminine stereotypes. In fact, trans women who look like women have more privilege than trans women who have his masculine features. They can't do anything consistent. Okay, so who's this Russian girl? You've probably guessed that the Russian girl we thought she was dead. Well, she's been alive this whole time, which means he was right. She's lying to him about her story, and then the person she lied about killing shows up and puts the knife at his throat, and the Russian lady's been alive this whole time. The reason Ninja G looks young is she does that kind of pseudo kung fu, magic mystical stuff that lets her stay young. And would you believe it? Yep, Ninja G was in a heterosexual relationship before, but being the first black female kick-ass toughest girl in all of Britain, hates God and country girl, well, she needs to be a lesbian. We need to make her much more diverse. We need 20% more diversity for this character to make her a really good progressive character. I'm offended that she is not a trans man and that she doesn't have the transsexual pride flag. I think that this comic is erasing the plight of trans individuals by having a cis black female lesbian character be the toughest badass action girl in all of Britain. So then she says that, well, she's going to go get her revenge on the people who killed the man she loved. So her handler, Charlotte, comes home. Look at this. So what she tells us is that she got revenge on Charlotte for killing the man she loved by killing the man she loves. Let's look at what she's done. She's pulled down his pants and his underwear, and she shoved her sword into his crotch. She's probably sexually assaulted this man, and she seems to have castrated him. Now, what did this guy do? Well, I killed the man she loved. He was a bastard too, if it helps. No, it doesn't help me. That doesn't help me. This is supposed to be our badass, awesome action girl. Out of petty revenge for Charlotte, to get revenge for killing the man she loved, this guy who we've just been introduced to, and we're told, he was a bastard. She pulled down his pants sexually. This is a sexual crime. This is like what Jack the Ripper did. He would murder women and he would stab them in the privates with his knife because he was insane. This girl is insane. This is supposed to be a cool character. This is supposed to... What message are you sending? That black female lesbian people are immoral? That they commit sexual crimes? That they sexually assault people? This is the second action of sexual violence in this comic, and she's committed both of them. This is horrendous. This is despicable. I don't care what he's done. He could be a villain. He could be evil. This is disgusting. This is filth. Okay, so here's my point. For a while on the Daily Wire, there was a guy called John Nolte. John Nolte's worked for Breitbart. He worked for Daily Wire for a little bit and left it. I wish he still worked on Daily Wire because he kind of offered a little bit of a different perspective. John Nolte's perspective was that when the media believes that representation matters, that images and words create violence, and then they do stuff like do hit pieces, what that is revealing is that the media has ill intent, which is why he would kind of have the joke username, CNN is Hitler. Because if CNN believes that video games prompt violence, that Fox News creates violence, and then CNN does hit pieces using violent or revolutionary language, well, if they're consistent with their own beliefs, it's reasonable to infer that maybe they want violence to happen. And he wasn't kind of directly saying it as bluntly as I was. He was making an argument about consistency. So here's the point I want to make. Social justice warrior feminists are obsessed with representation and how stories are told. If you have a gay person as the bad guy or a Christian white male as the good guy, they care about that and they talk about that because they believe that culture and movies and comics and stories create patriarchy. The cis heteronormative patriarchy tells things like fairy tale stories, and then fairy tale stories create create gender. It's a social construct. Little girls read Cinderella and then they learn to be, feminine. So they're mutually reinforcing. Stories create culture, culture create stories, and they want to call out all the sexism, racism, homophobia, and misogyny. So here's my question to every woke person on the left. If you believe that stories and video games and movies and such can teach people to be racist or sexist or misogynist, what message is this teaching? By the standard of the left, if you believe that images of violence against women, like Batgirl being attacked by the Joker, can create misogyny, can teach people to hate women or be misogynist against women, what is this image teaching people? This is presenting the sexual humiliation and murder of a man we don't know anything about, other than that she calls him a bastard, as a cool, awesome, she's a tough girl moment. Now, I'm not saying they're saying this is moral. I'm saying they're treating this character. She's on the front, looking all cool. She's the badass we've been following this whole story for. And she is sexually violent and murderous. Now Ninja K, he's murdered people. That's his job. He's an agent. But when they've shown him killing people, he's either regretful of killing people or he's killing people in the name of saving life or serving country or stopping the terrorists. She's just killed this guy out of revenge and sexually humiliated him and castrated him. The personal is political. Radical feminist messaging is intended to communicate a revolutionary message that is intended to make certain people feel uncomfortable. Does this make you feel uncomfortable? Well, Valiant Comics, you are hiring people who are intending to make people feel uncomfortable when this is supposed to be a fantasy James Bond character. This is off my pull list. No more. Not one more penny on this. Disgusting. Morally reprehensible. As bad a comic as Spider-Gwen number 23, Misandrist. This is a Misandrist comic. And the thing is, these kinds of things are targeted. They're written in such a way as to try to deflect criticism. So if I say this is Misandrist, well, the writer could say, oh, you're just reading too much into it. We're just telling a story with a badass girl who, murders people. That's part of it. No, you would not do this the other way around. You would not have a white male character do this to a black woman. You would never show a scene like that because you know full well the kind of political fallout you would get for having a either woman or minority character sexually humiliated and murdered by a cool, awesome, badass male or white character. And they do a bit. They do a bit about, oh, good, I hit this so hard it's starting to fall apart. Good. I hate this comic and I hope it falls apart. They do a bit about like intersectionality where she says, what is it? Okay, so the white handler did this to try to escape the glass ceiling. So just like Kehinde Wiley, drawing black women decapitating white men. This is an intersectional politics message about the white woman putting down the black woman so she can escape the glass ceiling. She's that sort of Hillary Clinton, a moderate Democrat type of white feminism. She wants to succeed by putting down the poor, benighted black character. Horrendous. This is not a character. This is a avatar for a disgusting political ideology that is intentionally revolutionary and intended to take away the joy and the excitement of fantasy storytelling. This is your fantasy storytelling, everybody. I want you to look at this. This is what fun action spy stories looks like under social justice warriorism. Horrendous, not one more penny. I am never, ever, ever going to stop talking about social justice in comics because it is an assault on what is good and fun in storytelling. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Summa triggerum, summa spoilerum, summa tangentum, and I'll catch you later.